I want to go back to an early point in the book where you talk about where your creative space kind of started. And that is like the kind of remote upbringing you had where, it's like necessity is the mother of invention is kind of a common axiom, but like, in that it's like boredom became like a kind of a vehicle for you to be creative. Can you unpack that, like where you first started kind of finding your love of music and then how you kind of started to delve into that?
Sure, yeah. I think I didn't realize how much that probably impacted the way I channeled creativity until I started writing this book. I was raised an only child in Eugene, Oregon, which is not too small of a town, but it's pretty small, and it's where our house was, it was like kind of outside of town. It was like 5 miles outside of town, so like if you didn't have a car or you were younger, you were just stranded there in the woods. And so I think from an early age, I had to kind of depend on my imagination quite a bit because there were no neighboring kids in the area. It was very difficult for me to see friends. I saw them, only at school or like the one night of a weekend that my mom would allow me to because she was pretty strict. And yeah, I think I just got really used to spending a lot of time alone. And I think a lot of times when you spend a lot of time alone, you are in your head and coming up with things. And so I think that's where a lot of my creativity kind of manifested.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the book, you talk about how you started kind of getting obsessed with record culture, like K Records and like Northwest scenes, and then like bigger bands like Modest Mouse. So yeah, where was that starting point where like you found some connection to these artists and you're like, that's a world that I feel like I could be a part of?
So I grew up with two parents that were not big music fans. We didn't really have any records in the household. My parents are like maybe the only people I know who like don't have music on in the car. And so around like 12 or 13, I remember making this decision that I was going to be like music guy. And so I feel like I started from a really basic place where I was just like music guy, listens to like Led Zeppelin, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Janis Joplin. And so I like made my parents buy me like all of these like very like classic rock CDs, and I was like, I'm music guy now. And then it wasn't until like 15, 16 that I like started kind of coming into a taste beyond what I thought you were sort of like supposed to be listening to as music guy. And a lot of that came from where I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so there was a lot of like really dynamic angular guitar kind of indie rock like Built to Spill and Modest Mouse, Elliott Smith, and those types of people. And then there was also like the K Records bands that were more lo-fi, like Mount Eerie, Slash the Microphones. All those people were like kind of like my heroes. And so I started going to like shows. It was tough in Eugene because bands were always like going from Portland to San Francisco, and because no one wants to play in Eugene. So there was a small venue called the Wow Hall that I would like sneak out of my house and go to as a kid. And if I was lucky, I could convince my mom to go see bands in Portland at the Crystal Ballroom. But even at that time, like I remember I saw Built to Spill at the Crystal Ballroom, and I was like, it didn't ever feel real to me until I actually saw some like upperclassmen playing like a DIY coffee shop show. Mm-hmm. And that was when it became like, oh, this is something that I could do, because they were like people I knew. Yeah. And they just, had like set up a mic and like a shitty PA, and were playing songs, and none of them were like great singers, Yeah. But there was something so charming about just seeing like people tell their stories and be creative, and it just felt like I could do that. And I think especially bands like Kimya Dawson and Joanna Newsom and Phil Elverum from Mount Eerie, I was always very, very self-conscious about my singing voice. And so those people, I was like, well, those people have weird voices, and people love them, but they're unique and they have something to say. And so that kind of gave me the courage to kind of try it on and start writing songs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the other thing that I think is interesting is like, you being out at the Grammys, it's funny, on social media, it's like I kept seeing strings of people posting photos of you playing house shows and being oh, I saw her like 5-6 years ago, and there was like 10 people there, and here you are at the Grammys, and they were all just reflecting like, it's so cool that like you kind of discovered your path and your journey through this like house shows and like small DIY things, and that was really the trajectory for your career.
Yeah, I'm honestly, sometimes I'm like bitter about like not being an 18-year-old that like shot to fame and like, could like buy designer goods at that age. But I'm also just so grateful in a way that I can, I feel like just ancient in the industry now in my 30s, but I'm really glad that it happened this way because I loved, I'm like a real nerd, like, I guess like just not true artist in that way where like I do like the business side of the music industry. And I loved booking shows and I loved doing my own PR. And one thing, everyone can say what they will about the Grammys. I think that one thing that made me feel really, there were many reasons why I felt very special to be at the Grammys, but one thing that I didn't think about until we were nominated was just like all of the people who are like in the secret society of Grammy voters, And I was thinking like, who put me here, And then I thought about my career for the past 10 years and how like every time we play KEXP, like Cheryl Waters remembers me and we're always like, I love when Cheryl Waters got cancer, I wrote to her and I felt like it very deeply. Or, Dan DeLuca, who writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer, like has always covered us, and John Batiste at the Key like covered us. When I used to email them, or like Quinn Moreland at Pitchfork used to work at Rookie when I would email her, and so all these people in your life, if you're like nice and like a human and become friends with those people. Yeah. And I was just thinking back, like all those people are probably Grammy voters, like that you do all these like interviews with like small town papers and stuff like that. And sometimes you don't want to do it and sometimes it's like just like annoying. But I feel like all of those impressions like end up paying off in a way. If you're just like a nice, humble person and you take all those things seriously and you think of all those people as people, I think that it's a nice like culmination of like all those people helping you out later on in your life.
And that seems to be a theme that I hear all the time, and also just through the day here, that relationships, networking is the like, technical term, but it's really being a person that's amenable, enjoyable to be around, and gets trustworthy, like that those traits, those soft skills really are kind of the key things in building your career.
Totally. I think networking like has a bad, networking can be so gross for sure, but I think that like you can be a human being about it, you know what I mean? Like don't be like networking for the sake of networking, but like you can just like approach people with an open mind and curiosity. And I think that if you look at networking in that way of just like being a human being, meeting other people and with common interests, like it becomes less disgusting.
Yeah. I want to go back to another point in the book where you talk about getting your first guitar. And I think it was right in the wake of some of those types of shows that you were mentioning. And, maybe it's not, the kind of classic like Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show moment, but it was something that resonated and made you go back to your parents and say, I want to try this. What was that like?
Yeah, my mom was like not into it at all. Like most Asian kids, I was forced into playing the piano at 5 and I hated it. And so my mom was like, you want to get a guitar lesson now after like the thousands of dollars I've wasted on piano lessons? She was like not having it. But I really wanted to learn the guitar, I guess like mostly to impress kids at school because it's like a lot sexier of an instrument. And yeah, so she finally relented after years of begging and I got a Yamaha acoustic guitar from Costco. That was like $100 and it came in like a box. And the action was just like half an inch like off the neck. And I just like fell in love with it immediately. I took lessons for a very short period of time. It was like I learned 3 chords and I was kind of off to the races. Like that's it. That's all I need. And it's been great to like get better guitars since then.
Well, I think it's an amazing full circle. I just opened up something and there was a Fender endorsement and there you are, So what an amazing thing starting from that, half-inch action guitar.
Yeah, now I have Fender sent me flowers for like my birthday. So it's like pretty sick, like full circle moment,
The other thing I like in the book that you get into is like kind of what you were mentioning, that you didn't just buy records, you like memorized, like you were really obsessed with like who's doing what and really get into like the back end of like who's engineering and like who's involved with the label and like how does that translate now into the way you approach, I don't know, music, like in terms of whether your craft or just the way that you deal with albums?
Yeah, I was like one step nerdier too, where I was like really into learning like who like the booking agents. Like I remember being like, oh my god, like this person from like Ground Control like books this artist or whatever. And so when I met my booking agent, Timmy Hefner, and so we have another agent named Merrick Jermilowitz, but his last name looks so much like Jamiroquai that I always just call him Merrick Jamiroquai. But yeah, I remember seeing like the bands, like the booking contacts for bands that I loved, and so like when I met those people, they were like celebrities to me, like these booking agents, which is so nerdy. But I just like I just wanted in, just so like embarrassingly badly that I like knew like all of the what PR companies bands were on, what booking agencies like these places were on. They were like celebrities to me. But I think it made me really grounded in like how to build a good team, you know, because I'm like, I wasn't really interested in people. I was never interested in like major labels. I was never interested in a certain type of team. I was interested in, and that's one of the reasons why we signed to Dead Oceans, was because I felt like, you know, there's no like, I don't know, like Katy Perry's or whatever on that label, but there are like people with like Mitski or like Kevin Morby and Angel Olsen, like that have these like long-lasting careers, and it felt like, you know, I had a good intuition because I was such a nerd about studying where all these bands were coming from, of how to find people that would help me build like a longer-lasting career. And I still like am constantly living in fear that the industry just changes so much, and one moment you're like popular and the next moment you're not. I mean, I've known so many bands that have played to like thousands of people in Belgium at a festival and now can't draw 20 people in Portland. So it's just such a fickle industry, and so I've always like lived in fear of watching my career like sort of slip through my fingers, and so it was always really important for me to build like a team that I felt like were after a long-lasting career.
Yeah. Like the situational awareness, like so important to understand like who you can trust and like who's going to really serve your career. Like I was at South by Southwest, I saw a pull quote that they put out that South by really served as a mechanism for you to meet. Is that where you got connected with Ground Control and the label, or was that just the booking agent?
Yeah, we had kind of like one of those miracle South by Southwest stories where like that is what that festival is like kind of supposed to do for you. I was where that, you know, at the time I was like working in New York at an advertising company, and the album had started to pick up steam, and I had told the label I was never gonna tour because I was like, I finally have health insurance, I like can't lose this. And then I went in for like my year-end review at this office job thinking I was gonna get a raise, and they're like, actually you're doing a really bad job. And I was like, what? And the CEO like kind of misspoke and was like, that's like not good that you have no idea, like it must be like kind of a problem on our end too that like no one has indicated that to you. And I think he like thought I was like a funny kid and like just felt bad for me, and he was like, well, if you're unhappy here, like we can give you like a 2-month severance to leave. And that is crazy. Like, you know, there were people who worked there for like 6 years that didn't get like a 2-week severance. So he just misspoke, and I was like suddenly offered like 2 months to like figure out if this music thing was gonna work for me. And around that time I had started getting these South by Southwest offers for like free showcases. And I was kind of like, maybe I should put together a band and try this out, because I have like a 2-week, like a 2-month landing, you know, cushion.
And what year was this?
Financial cushion. This is 2016.
Okay.
And so around that time, Dead Oceans was kind of courting me, and you know, I had set up all these meetings with booking agents, but no one had ever seen us play live because we'd never played live, you know. And I didn't even have a band. I had to figure out how to like mix the tracks to like an SP404 to play, and then like the drummer was playing with one headphone on that had the click track. It was a disaster. But we played a show, and like, you know, we did a good enough job that like we got a booking agent. I got signed to Dead Oceans. Like, tons of press came out, and we just exploded from there.
Yeah.
And then we got offered a 6-week Mitski tour across North America, and that was like, I never worked a day job again after that.
Amazing. Yeah. So it was almost like a supernova event, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, we played like 9 free showcases, and yeah, like just pretty much like spent probably half my cushion to like get over there and do that.
Yeah. So in broad strokes, like, so Soft Sounds from Another Planet, being into Jubilee from last year, like, what did that look like after you got the kind of key players in place? I guess this is like the postscript to the book then. Like, where does it go from there, and what does that journey look like?
I feel like sometimes like my career feels like I'm like at a boardwalk in one of those cubicles where like money is just like fanning up and you have to just like grab it like as fast as possible. I have felt like that for basically like the past 6 years of just like, fan is gonna stop at some point in time. And so I feel like I've just been like head to the ground, like chugging along. And just like doing, I mean, I feel like it's felt intuitive, just like what to do next. You know, you make another record, you tour. It was like, everything kind of like goes in stages. Like I remember I got a publishing advance from Dead Oceans and I bought a Honda Odyssey minivan. And we started as a 3-piece and we did the Mitski tour in a Honda Odyssey minivan. We bought a little turtle top for all the merch. And I did 3 full North American tours in that minivan. And I'm like anal as hell. Like I just made a spreadsheet and I like emailed all of my friends in like all of these cities. We stayed at all these strangers' floors. So like I wish my keynote could be like this old Excel spreadsheet, because our advance was like, we made $250 a day on that opening tour.
Wow.
And I paid the band like $300 a week. And we stayed at maybe 2 hotels.
And what cap rooms were you all playing?
This was like 250 to 500 cap rooms, which felt huge to me at the time. And I remember like we ended the tour with Mitski at Music Hall of Williamsburg. And I was like, if I can ever get to the point where I headline Music Hall of Williamsburg and my name is on that marquee, like I'm done. I'm like totally happy. And then, you know, a year and a half later, there we were, and immediately after that, you're like, okay, what's next? Like, that's just the cycle of everything.
That's
you know,
right.
you get on a bus, and immediately it's like, we should get another bus.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those things where just ambition makes you just want to keep going, and the rooms that you thought were really big before start feeling small, and yeah, it's just a never-ending, like, I remember when we first went to in-ear monitors, it's such a huge expense to go to in-ear monitors. And we spent so much money like transitioning to in-ear monitors. It was such a huge moment. This was maybe like 2 or 3 years into our touring. And then just a few months ago, I like finally went to like update my ears. And he was like, oh yeah, these are like entry level in-ears. And I was like, there's other levels? Like that's crazy. So everything just like has a tier. And as soon as you get to the new tier and you think it's like the biggest deal, you realize that there's a whole other set of tiers ahead of you.
Yeah. So with that in mind, coming out of 21 into this year and beyond, like what's on the horizon? What are you working on right now?
So I guess you have given me permission. I don't know why.
Yeah, we got an exclusive announcement.
Yeah, we will be playing Nelsonville Festival in September. I'm very excited. Actually, my booking agent, who typically will only come to like the bigger like festivals or whatever, like Coachella or something or ACL. He was like, I think I'm going to come to Nelsonville because the lineup is sick. So I'm really excited about that. We're mostly just doing big festivals in pretty much every weekend for the rest of the year. And so yeah, I'm going to try to just like enjoy myself, because like for the past year it's just been a lot of anxiety, because like every time you get to like a new level, you like are so freaked out that you don't deserve to be there in a way. And I feel like the following year, after all like the big touring stuff happens, you can kind of like breathe again, and you're like, I do deserve to be here. I can just kind of like enjoy myself again. So I had so much weird stage fright that I never really had before this last year, I think because of COVID and the last 2 years being off and stuff. And so this year I just like want to chill and have a good time playing festivals again. Yeah,
that makes sense. I feel like I talked to a lot of people at South by this year that were like trying to figure out the social muscle again of like not being around people and then getting in front of people again. And then now with masks, like it's been a learning process, I feel like, for everyone.
For sure. I mean, so many people are like, oh, it's so hard to see like my friends again. It's like, imagine like playing in front of 1,500 people after like being inside for like 2 years.
Yeah. Well, we want to leave room for some questions. We have microphones on either side, so welcome you. Don't be shy to head over. And if we have more than one, just get in a line. Great.
Hi. My name is Lyndon, and my question was surrounded your discussion about the industry being fickle.
Yeah.
Was there something about the industry that you believed in the past that you no longer believe now?
Oh. That's a great question. What did I believe in the past?
I don't know.
Oh, you know, it might be what we talked about backstage about like the learning to trust yourself and like bad decisions with like team members, like figuring out like to advocate for yourself, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like, I mean, I guess I just like I didn't. Oh, you know what a good one is I was very like anti-manager for a really long time because I just felt like no one would ever love me the way that I love me, which is true, which is good, which is still true. But you know, it's so weird. I mean, like I have a lot of friends and bandmates that I played with over the years that were convinced that it was like one thing that like it took to pop. So like some people are like, oh, you have to get a good lawyer and they know people, or like if we just open for this band, then we will be famous. I have so many people who want to like knew that they want like we're trying to skip steps, and so I'm lucky that I never had that feeling. I always felt like I'm ready to like grind for the next 5 years, and someday it will happen. But I was very anti-manager for a long time because I just didn't believe that anyone would deserve 15% of everything that I do. And stupidly, I signed my record contract thinking like, oh, this will be great. I'm signing a record contract before I have a manager, and that way they can't take 15% of my advance, which is so stupid. So I think now I'm less anti-manager because managers they have so many comps to look at of just what bands, what to look out for and what to protect you from, which I just had no idea. At the time it was like $10,000 for my publishing for the rest of my life. I will be able to live forever off of that money, and then it quickly becomes not a lot of money. But yeah, I would say definitely that. And yeah, what you were saying is, you know, so much of, I think that there is a really, it's really important to say yes as an artist to a lot of things. And for the last like 5 years, I've just felt like I've said yes to everything because I wanted it so badly. But it's a new period of time that I'm in where it's also really important to say no. And there are a lot of people that are going to try to take advantage of you or like put you in uncomfortable situations, and it's really important to know where to draw the line and to shore up like where your boundaries are. So I think that those are the two main things yeah, sometimes it's really good to have a manager but it has to be a good one that really knows what they're doing. And I think the most important thing is to see what other kind of artists they work with and to call them. I've had so many talks with other musicians where they want to know about our manager and what it's like working with him. And you know, I like to be very, very transparent about that. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll go over here.
Hi, I'm Danny. You talked so much about the importance of team building and like having a good team. I still very vividly remember in the summer of 2017 when Psychopomp first showed up on my Spotify, like, you might like this, and I put on my headphones and I went for a bike ride and I was in love immediately.
Oh,
so I'm just curious, at that point when you made that record, what would you have considered your team, like the people around you, and what did that look like back then?
Yeah, back then, I had, I remember, so Yellow K record, I sent this record to maybe like 20 labels, and I'm not talking like small, like Matador, Sub Pop, like Dead Ocean small labels. I'm talking like labels you've never heard of, like cassette labels and stuff like that. My friend's label, like Double Whammy, who does like Lamelda, and they did Frankie Cosmos, like small labels that were run by like friends and kids, being just like, yeah, no. And the only record label that was interested was this label called Yellow K Records, based out of Frostburg, Maryland. That was kind of just like a pet project. Their main gig was that he ran a vape store. So that's like where the money channeled in, like for their, like the vape juice money paid for the records. And so, yeah, he was like, I really, love this album. We want to put it out. Like, I'm gonna pay for like a PR person. And at the time, I was like, I'm not touring. Like, I got this job finally. I don't want to like sleep on floors anymore. Like, I got to do this dumb gig now. And he was like, okay, but we're gonna hire this publicist, Aloy, who's still our publicist today, who literally, was booking me, like, went writing emails for us, like, when I was, like, first of 4 at a house show in LA, and now is, like, walking the red carpet with me at the Grammys, so it's so sick The people that I work with typically, like, if they're great, like, I want to work with them forever. And yeah, like, so he was like, I'm gonna hire a publicist, and I was like, that's your money, you know, like, that's your loss. And he was such a major part of, I think, why that, it was the first time that we had, like, just a great publicist, and not like I feel like when you hear even saying publicist sounds like so yucky, but if you meet him, he's just not like a gross, like, sleazy PR person. He's like he's a big Adam Sandler fan. He like hosts these like 24-hour like Adam Sandler movie marathons at his house. Like, he's the best guy. So it was really just like publicist and label. And then we went to South by, and then it was booking agent. But it was a really slow process, and it was really, it was slow for me because I wanted just my hand on everything. You know, I for my entire life had always sent public PR emails. I had booked all of our shows, and so, you know, it was kind of good to know how to do those things, because when someone took it over, you knew how to like if they were doing a good job, and you also knew you could really appreciate them because you knew like sort of what went into it. So yeah, it was a very, very slow process of doing publicist, then booking agent and label, and then finally manager and business manager at the same time.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
Hi, I'm Jonah. Thank you so much for being here. So since Jubilee and Crying and H Mart came out around the same time, how did you balance working on both those projects at the same time? And like, did you ever feel like you had too much on your plate?
I like to be like so busy that I can't think about a mental looming darkness. And yeah, I mean, the projects like really like fed into each other in a natural way. One really nice thing about publishing is that it takes a really long time. And so when I finished the rough draft of this book, I had 3 to 4 months away from it where the editor was, you know, reading it and giving notes, and it took a really long time. And because she had it, I couldn't work on the book. I had to just walk away from it. So there's this built-in perspective about writing a book that is really, really nice. So in that 3 to 4 months that I had off was when I started really writing and recording that album. And because like writing a book is like such a lonely, solipsistic experience that makes you feel like just a total idiot, I was just so enthusiastic about going back to like the familiar arms of record making. It just felt like so collaborative and easy and familiar to me in this way. So they kind of like had natural breaking points where they could they gave space for each other to exist.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I actually haven't heard any of your music, and I was wondering if you could kind of explain it to me and advertise it.
Yeah, it was playing earlier.
Walked in late.
Oh, okay.
What do you like?
We're like an indie band. I feel like I am always trying to make like dynamic pop music, basically. That's like I feel like Fleetwood Mac is like a good pop band that has like just like timeless substance. So I feel like I'm always looking to find like a dynamic arrangement and.
So like, where do you get your inspiration?
Sound and words.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Oh, hi, I'm Grace. I was just wondering, you talk a lot about in your book about like rejection and kind of overcoming that, whether it be like in the music industry or like through writing or like just trying to like find your place, kind of like growing up in a smaller town. And I'm a writer myself, I'm a journalism student, so I was just wondering, like, sometimes when you feel burnt out or like you feel like that rejection's like weighing down on you a lot, like what kind of has gotten you through that in the past?
You know, I think that it's just so hard, and it helps to have like a really good community of people that also get rejected a lot to commiserate with, you know? And yeah, I mean, I think the reason why I always say this is because it was really tough, and it is helpful to know that like it's not you sometimes, you know? Like most of the time it's not you, it's them, and it just hasn't gotten into the right hands yet, or it's just not the right time. I sent Crying in H Mart, the essay to like, the first essay that this was based on, similar to the record, I sent to like every literary contest without an entry fee, every like food blog for free. I was just like, please take this. I just like want to be done with it, and no one wanted it. And this has been a bestseller for 36 weeks, so all those people are idiots, you know? And so I think that just like to know that people, like every artist goes through that, you know? I feel like, unless you're just like annoying, but like I think that to just like always remember that like it's such a big part of it, and to not lose hope, and like, you know, give it a rest for a little bit. If it's hard, just like let it go and do something else for a little while and come back to it, because I think that if it's really in you and that creativity is existing, it's never gonna go away. It's always gonna nag on you. You're always gonna need to like have that kind of outlet, and just try not to get too discouraged, because it happens to everyone. Sometimes it took me like 10 years of sleeping in like cat piss carpet, like in order to get to where it's so worth it in the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Hi. It's okay. My name is Holloway Williams. I'm a singer, songwriter, producer based out of Pittsburgh, PA. I feel quite a connection with you. I recently, during the pandemic, quit a marketing job to focus on my music. I'm juggling like being a nanny. I say like I'm a part-time nanny, part-time rock star kind of thing. But I just put out my first EP, and I'm doing like all of the social media stuff myself. I did all of the production, all the mastering, all the mixing, all the reaching out to stations. Like, it has been 100% me for the last like year now. And I guess I'm just like asking for advice. I guess I'm having a little bit of help right now with booking locally. I'm looking to branch out, but someone, you know, who I do it all, and asking for help can be a little bit tricky. And I know that I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, you need to ask for help. What is like the best avenue to start asking for help, whether that be because I have like fully orchestrated pieces in my production that are like multi-instrumental. Like, to put it onto stage, I would need 7 instrumentalists. So translating that into a performance, when it's just me, I'm like, okay, I can't be all of it. So I guess like from a musician standpoint, and also like the like production help standpoint, like the backstage kind of stuff.
Yeah, Psychopomp Ozo like had a lot of like keyboards and samples and stuff, and we started as a 3-piece because I was just like, I'm really sorry, but I have to pay you $300 a week to do this. Like, you can say no, but that's what's available right now. So it was the smartest for us to just start small. I mean, a big thing that helped us was backing tracks. You know, we have, you know, we did drums and bass and guitar live, and then all of the, you know, I mean, people. I feel like there's a stigma against backing tracks, but it's also just like, who wants to play like fucking low pad, you know, for
Yes,
like
yes.
the whole show. It's not cool to like have someone play low pads live.
Exactly.
So yeah, we had like a lot of low pads and like, you know, some of the synth stuff like on the backing tracks, and it was definitely challenging and a learning process. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's certainly much easier to tour. It's a smart, you know, like there's a lot more money if the less people that are on stage, and then it's a lot more exciting to get to grow that as you get bigger. So we started as a 3-piece with SPD backing tracks, and then we went to a 4-piece. We had another guitar player who also played keyboards. Now we're a 6-piece, and now we're like with a total 10-person touring party with front of house, monitors, LD, and like a tour manager. But it took 6 years to get there. So I feel like for backing tracks is like a good way to go, and start small, because it's gonna be so much easier if you do touring to have less people to like put up in someone's house or at a hotel, less people to pay, and you know. Worked for us. For other stuff, I mean, I think that like whatever you hate to do the most is maybe the best person to try to fit into your team. So, you know, I definitely like, you know, with for me, it was like PR and booking agent. But sometimes, it's like it's really hard to get a good person until you just like have more of a name for yourself. So I would suggest like just keep putting out music and like keep, just like trying to do exactly what you're doing, but just keep putting out. And I think naturally like buzz will collect around you, and the right people will start entering into your lives. So I remember we had a booking agent too that would book like house shows for us. And there's kind of like a different tier also even with booking agents where like there's some like DIY booking agents that can help you like get house shows. And then there's the booking agents that's like, okay, this person can draw 50, 20 people in this city. And like getting there is tough. It sounds like so wimpy to draw like 20 people in like, I don't know, like Minnesota or something. But like that's what those booking agents are looking for, and actually that ends up being like your token into that kind of world. And to get there, you have to like hit this certain breaking point, I feel like, where like there's press around you. So I think that my biggest piece of advice is just like keep making music, keep putting it out, and eventually like people will take notice and you'll start getting the right team together.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Michelle. I'm Brad Savage from Public Radio, The Summit, 90.1 FM here in Athens, and we're actually based out of Akron, Youngstown area. But I kind of wanted to ask about reflecting on, you talk a lot about the DIY background and house shows and being a really underground artist, and now this week, your Slide Tackle song is number 16 on the national BDS radio chart.
Oh, amazing.
And like, and then you're on the Grammys, and we're watching the Grammys. My 8-year-old like sees your picture, and they played the snippet of the song, and he's like, Daddy, you play that on your station. Like, is she famous? Do you know her? So talk about coming from that DIY background to where you are today and kind of how it feels to be on a larger spectrum like that.
It feels great. I have to say, like, the most Korean thing about me is, like, all of my feelings of joy and success are rooted in vengeance. And so, like, I just think about all the people. Like, I had, like, an ex-boyfriend that was just like, maybe you're just, like, not meant to do music. And, like, I just am like, fuck you, So, yeah, I like to think about all of those people and how much I've spited all of them in moments like this. It feels really good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Will. Thank you for the reading and for your music. All of it is great. I wanted to ask about kind of like why I was going to say pivot, but that's not the word I want, but like why you decided to write a memoir, because I feel like it seems like that came really naturally for you. But I'm a writer myself, actually, and I was interested in like what made you make that decision to like branch to, this thing, you're just doing it in your house by yourself a lot. So I was wondering like if that feels like connected to music for you, or if that's like kind of like a separate project that was sort of a different thing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. I think that from very early on, my interest in music was more rooted in like writing songs than it was actually being like a virtuoso at the guitar. I just loved, it was always like a vehicle for songwriting. I loved to like tell stories. And in middle school and high school, I thought I wanted to be a journalist because it felt like the most like logical path for me as a writer. And then I went to college and I studied creative writing and was playing in bands on the side. But they always felt sort of hand in hand. I mean, I'm interested in narrative and storytelling in the way, and those two things are very, very similar. But yeah, I mean, when my mom died, I wrote 2 albums about grief. And I think after that, it just felt like I had so much more to say about that experience. It was like 6 months of watching someone's health deteriorate, and my entire nuclear family fell apart. My whole life changed, and I very much look at that moment in my life as like a before and after that moment still. And I was so angry that like no one had prepared me for this moment, and no one could ever understand, particularly my peers and people my age, I felt like no one understood like what I went through and how tragic and traumatizing that experience was for me. And there were parts of it also where I just thought it was really interesting. I never read a story about someone growing up mixed race in this way, and I think I also wanted to memorialize my mom. And the thing with records is that it's like maybe 1,500 words on her album, and I needed like 80,000 to explain what had happened, and it just happened naturally. Where like I wrote this essay, and in writing this essay, I was like, oh well, there's a lot more there that I need to figure out, and so yeah, that was sort of how that happened.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Addie. I also don't think I've ever listened to one of your songs before, but my question was, hi, thank you for having me. But my question was, if you could re-listen to one of your songs for the first time again, what song would it be and why?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I feel that way about all, I feel like our songs are very different from one another. One thing I really like about our band is that I think the songs are all like quite diverse in sound. And there are different things that I definitely like took away from each one. I remember Roadhead is off our second album, and writing that song felt like I had like unlocked a new part of my production and songwriting, and so I like that song. And then most recently, I soundtracked an indie game called Sable that's out on Xbox. Yeah, and oh, thank you. Yeah, and there's a song on there called "Better the Mask" that I'm really proud of. It was like the first string arrangement I handled on my own, and I think it has a very like classic, timeless sound that I'm sort of after it now as an adult, and I was very, very proud of myself when I wrote that song. I would love to re-listen to that song again, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kelly Locke. I was just kind of wondering, I think these last two questions have kind of touched on it, but you put so much emotion and so much of your identity into your music, most definitely, but also the other projects that you work on, like Crying in H Mart and Sable. I guess my question is, do you deal with burnout, and how do you deal with burnout?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I always think about like how miserable I was at a 9-to-5 job, and how like truly burnt out I was in that space. That I just maybe because I like wanted this job like so badly, and I feel like I just have this like lottery ticket of a job right now that I'm mostly very just happy working. Like to be able to do this is just like a miracle for me. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely like as I get older, learning that I have to. I think that I'm entering this new part of my life where I'm learning how to say no for the first time. It's been really hard, honestly, because I just feel like sometimes like the manager will be like, "Can you do 9 local interviews today?" And I'm just like, I feel so bad because like those are the people who helped me get here, that I want to do those 9 interviews with local papers. But it's gotten to a place where in my career where like I just can't do it anymore and not get burnt out. So that's still like it's always like a crushing thing, and hopefully in the next year it won't be a crushing thing for me to say no to anymore. But yeah, it's still something I'm definitely learning. Like, my manager will be like, "Can you do a 6-week tour where there's 6 days on and 1 day off?" And like I've said yes to that my entire career, and like just this year I was like, let's not do that. Like I've seen like my friend's band is only doing 4 days on and then they have a day off. Like we should probably do that too. And also because like I have to consider other people that are like in the touring party that don't, have like can't even consent to that. Like I try to think more about them too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this will be our last question. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. My name's Carly Dixon. I own a venue in Dayton, Ohio, and I'm relatively new to it. We all do happen to be an all-women venue. Our booking manager is a woman. Our sound engineer is a woman. I'm the owner and a woman. It just so happens, but we do find that we're all equally motivated to ensure that every guest that comes to our space walks away having an unforgettable experience. But what we are also realizing is the most important thing is that the artists have an unforgettable experience. And I would just love to know from your perspective, what are your favorite venues to play and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, like, my favorite places are also like kind of rooted in this like vengeance narrative. So, you know, there's this venue called Union Transfer in Philly where like I kind of came up as a musician, and when it first opened, I worked at the coat check, and I accidentally took. First of all, I didn't get any training to know what a counterfeit bill looks like, and I took a fake $100 bill and I gave them like $99 of real money back. And the management was like, you have to pay for that. And like I was like making minimum wage. I worked like a 5-hour shift, and that was like more money than I was gonna make for the night. So it was so crushing. And my boss, Sean Agnew, who's a promoter in Philly, paid me, like fronted the money for me. And so just this last year, we did 5 sold-out shows at Union Transfer, and I gave him $100 back. And when I came out into the lobby after our 5-night run, they had painted a sign that read, Michelle Zauner's coat check. And so that coat check is my coat check now. And there's like a plaque that says like, may everyone who works at this venue go on to sell out 5 nights at Union Transfer. So that like obviously holds a special place in my heart. I mean, honestly, most of the venues that I love have like some kind of nostalgic connection for me, like Crystal Ballroom and going to shows in Portland is really special. But yeah, I mean, I think that like anywhere you go where it feels like the staff likes each other and likes being there, and there isn't like a combativeness or a defensiveness of like a band coming in. It's like we're working together, is the most important thing. Like when you go into a space and you can just sense like the people who work here want to be here and they're like excited to be here. Talia Hall in Chicago is definitely one of those venues where it's like, you know, we'll always go back to Talia Hall. What's another venue that the Sinclair in Boston is another one of those venues where it just feels like everyone just like is so happy to have you there. Because there are a lot of venues that doesn't feel like what's going on. So I think that, you know, yeah, feeling like people are looking out for you and listening to you and just there to help you instead of, I don't know, like defend their property in this way. I think that's an important thing.
Well, we've got that box
Okay,
checked
good,
then,
good.
so thank you, I appreciate it.
I'm sure you're doing. Anyone who's asking that question and concerned about making a comfortable space for an artist is probably a great space and doing the right thing.
Michelle Zauner, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.